An NYPD sergeant now facing a slew of charges, including manslaughter, for trying to stop a suspect who was trying to get away from officers at the scene of a drug bust. He threw a water cooler at the suspect, who was driving on the sidewalk, and then crashed the motorcycle he was riding. He died. But is that deserving of a manslaughter charge? In August of last year, Sergeant Eric Duran, an undercover member of the NYPD narcotics unit, was taking part in a buy and bust operation in the Bronx where 30-year-old Eric Dupree allegedly tried selling drugs to an undercover cop. Officers tried to arrest Dupree. He fled on a motorcycle. This part was caught on video. You can see Dupree racing down the sidewalk towards a group of people. That's when Sergeant Duran, who's not in uniform and also standing on the sidewalk, grabs a civilian's cooler and throws it at the guy. The force of the cooler apparently causing Dupree to lose control of his bike, hitting his head on the curb, landing under a parked car, and Dupree was pronounced dead at the scene. This week, Sergeant Duran was arraigned on 4 charges: manslaughter in the second degree, which carries a maximum sentence of 25 years behind bars, criminally negligent homicide, assault in the first degree, assault in the second degree. The indictment states that Sergeant Duran did recklessly cause the death of Eric Dupree by striking him with a blunt object, but Duran's attorneys are saying Dupree himself is to blame.
Eric Dupree is dead because of Eric Dupree's actions. Eric Dupree had every opportunity in the world to slow down, stop, or move out of the way, get off the sidewalk. But instead, he drove directly at Sergeant Eric Duran, as well as 2 detectives who didn't know he was coming.
In retrospect, should the sergeant have thrown the cooler at the suspect? Probably not. But manslaughter? Back with me, Geraldo Rivera, Ashleigh Banfield, and Jesse Weber. Geraldo, overcharge here?
I think it's definitely overcharged. I give this caveat. I have family members who are members of the NYPD in the Bronx. The cops are very, very sensitive about this one. They think that this guy, the sergeant, is being really scapegoated, or, you know, Black Lives Matter is involved now. You have all kinds of protests calling the cops all kinds of names. You know, these are split-second decisions these cops make in exigent circumstance. So here's a guy, a drug seller, on a motorcycle, on the sidewalk, aiming it toward the cop. You know, you grab. I mean, I've been in so many scrapes myself where you grab whatever you can, whatever it is. You know, it's unfortunate. It's tragic that the kid died. They're both ironically named Eric. It's sad. I feel badly for his family, and I wish it didn't happen. But to charge him with manslaughter, come on, what, you know, is every cop who gets involved in these buy-busts, which are so inherently dangerous, as we all know, and they go south, to charge him with manslaughter, I think that's really grossly overcharging in this case, Dan.
Yeah, maybe we should give police business cards that they can hand to bad guys that says, please stop. Because the truth is, what that officer did was he stopped a bad guy. But the legal term for that bad guy is fleeing felon. And why does that matter? Because that fleeing felon was on a dangerous weapon on a sidewalk. And let's just be clear that if you hit your head at high speed on a sidewalk, you can die, as we know he did. So he is a fleeing felon who was causing the same grave possibility to anybody else on that sidewalk, and that officer had every right to stop a fleeing felon, because the law says police can stop a fleeing felon. They can shoot them in the back to do so.
Let me play. This is Duran's attorney in court on Tuesday, number 5.
He drove at about 40 miles an hour on a motorcycle on the sidewalk, placing the lives and health of everybody on that street at risk, and particularly Sergeant Duran and his team. And it was then and only then that Sergeant Duran, knowing he couldn't shoot him and he couldn't put hands on him because he was going too fast, used the only object he had available to him to try to stop him, and that was a cooler.
That justification argument sounds like a pretty strong one.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to drop the charge or lower it. I don't know if they're going to win this at trial, because I think when you suggest that if there were people in danger and all he had in his hands was this particular item, he had no choice but to do this at this time. You know, we talk about it so many times where there's officer-involved shootings, and you wonder if they didn't take fire, if they didn't open fire at that moment, what could have happened? This is an unfortunate situation, but I mean, when you think about it, did he really know that by throwing the cooler, it was going to kill him?
Well, I wonder, by the way, what if a civilian had just thrown this at him, right? What if it hadn't even been a cop? What if a civilian who was standing on the sidewalk sidewalk is nervous that this guy is riding on the sidewalk in his motorcycle. Civilian has a cooler in his hand. He's, throws it at the guy. Oh, we're going to charge that person with manslaughter now?
Well, now you hear a lot of conversation. This is not in the police manual. I think Mayor Eric Adams even said we're not taught that. But, I don't know if that's going to be the end-all, be-all about it.
I mean, again, the argument that it's not in the police manual, cops have to make do with what they have a lot of the time.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.